A Tale of Two Captains, a Shoto Todoroki X-Reader. Written by Jules. Chapter 10. Did you know that the stars could sing? You broke the ice between you before it had even begun to freeze. Todoroki looked up at them, standing beside you so he could see what you were seeing.
I did not. I thought they just sat there.
You sighed through your nose and shook your head. Nope. They make all kinds of sounds, sort of like the notes of an instrument. Combine that with the slowed down beat of a velopulsar, and you have your own music. You pointed at one of them, a small dot next to two bigger stars. That one right there would make a really low note, I think, and the others would be an octave higher. Maybe I can show you once we can get back.
You do that? I thought you were out to kill me.
You didn't look at him, but you could hear the small amusement in his voice. You're too useful. Killing you would be a waste, you replied. Also, your team would miss you.
I thought we were mice.
Maybe you grew on me a bit. Each one of you has assets the guard wouldn't let you explore. I plan to utilize them. In return, you'll see what you don't see about yourselves.
You never asked me what my assets were.
You looked at him now, your eyes meeting his. There were no ill intentions in them anymore. Just plain curiosity. You felt your body relax more as you looked at him. His eyes appeared brighter in person than on a monitor. That was because I thought you had none, and I still don't think you do. But you can prove that when your friend comes to kill me.
I don't need to prove myself to you.
Out went the light in his eyes. You looked back up, disappointed with a shrug. It's not for me. Not anymore. It's for you.
Are you Midoriya now? Telling me that I'm not who my father made me out to be? Your tricks won't work on me.
He knows what he's saying, then. I don't know anything about your father other than his name. I'm sorry I misjudged your bond with him. A sharp inhale was his only response, followed by a shaky exhale. I understand the loss, you know. Having to start from square one. The only difference between you and me is that you have someone to back you up. Your crew. And soon enough, my crew.
What about you? Are you going to berate me every moment I spend on that ship?
I have to forgive you first. But having me as an ally will prove to be more of an advantage than you think. You both kept the conversation going, jumping back to the singing stars and planets. You pointed each of them out and guided his hands to which ones you were referring to, explaining their sounds and what you could make from them. It was almost as if you two were friends at that moment, with no labels to drive you two apart. Your instincts didn't tell you to run. In fact, you wanted to stay right there. You weren't the only one thinking it. You were about to explain how one of the bigger moons sounded when Spats called the both of you back to his shack.
This new admiral's gonna give you a run for your money with a ship like his, Squirt. So you're gonna need more firepower.
He clicked open a chest. Inside were explosives galore. Enough to crash your own vessel into the ground. Todoroki and you looked at one another, your signature smirk meeting his plotting smile. It was nice to finally agree on something. You thanked Spats and promised him fresh materials for his help. Todoroki offered to carry the chest into the pod since your wrist was still swollen from the fistfight. The flight back was mostly silent, other than the small comment about the damage done from the landing, which you had to pay for. Todoroki landed the pod and waited for the gate to close before opening the latch, helping you out of the pod. Thank you. Now we have to carry this back to the others. Put it on this, here. You kicked the long hoverboard to him. You used your free hand to gently place it on the board, causing it to bob up and down from the weight before stabilizing.
You need to wrap that, or else it'll get worse,
Todoroki commented, pointing at your wrist. I know, I'll wrap it up now. Then the crew needs to hear our plan.
Our plan?
You nodded and headed to the med bay, intent on fixing the throbbing. Yes, our plan. You're going to be the one to greet the admiral while I sneak on the ship and blow up one of the minor chambers. Then, a new game of cat and mouse begins. This only confused him, so he kept asking questions.
Why wouldn't you just destroy the guard if you hate it so much?
My goal isn't to destroy it. It's to fix it. I take out all of the bastards and hope that the people who actually do others a service take charge.
And how did I not benefit others? I kept a lot of people safe.
You did. But you also imprisoned and killed innocents with only a story and no evidence. I couldn't let you keep it up after I lost my parents. You heard him say something, but your ears didn't believe what you were hearing. Huh? You turned to face him and looked down. He was bowing.
I'm sorry I killed your parents, Captain.
You covered your mouth and turned. God, you were getting emotional. What happened to not finding any truth in my words? I thought you were just following orders.
I was being stubborn, and I didn't want to find anything since you were my enemy. But if I'm to work with you long term, I might as well admit it.
He paused and corrected himself before his words got him into any trouble.
I am truly sorry.
You blinked any tears away and looked at him, extending your good hand out to him to shake. I forgive you. He accepted the handshake. A truce was formed. All the dead weight from all those years of running and fighting left you as the both of you shook hands. Unfortunately, the moment was gone when Midoriya's panicked voice filled the intercoms.
Captain! Todoroki! Admiral Bakugo found us and he's firing at us!
Chapter 11. Shit! You hissed as the sounds of incoming fire shook La Boheme. The two of you had arrived just in time for them. Alright, go to the podium and distract him. Claim you killed me and you took over to get your position back. I'll go back to the pod and sneak on, drop the explosives, and escape before anyone realizes I'm gone. You got all that? You let go of his hand and began to push the hoverboard back to the pod as Todoroki rushed to the main deck to see what Bakugo was doing. You struggled to get the chest gently in the pod, but it was necessary. You didn't want to blow everyone up. After you managed to tuck it in, you attached the hoverboard so that it would simply float into the guard's ship and you could easily leave. You launched the pod, starting your descent to the underbelly of the giant battleship. Your crew was finally firing back at the guard as you reached it. Albatross, is there any way I can get inside? You asked.
Scanning for ways of entry. There were multiple ways to get in, all with the 100% chance you will get caught.
So what do you suggest I do?
A few seconds passed.
The ship was getting closer and you were running out of ideas.
Perhaps put the crate of explosives on one of the engines?
You're a genius! Thank you, Albatross! You turned the pod and began to make your way behind the ship, watching at the 3 spinning engines. You hovered above them and turned the pod upside down, opening the latch and letting the hoverboard drop slowly onto the center engine. Blowing this one up would damage the others, securing a safe escape for you and everyone inside your ship. The explosive had to be detonated manually, which was going to take some time, so you prayed that Todoroki was distracting Admiral Bakugo as best he could. Todoroki stood at the podium, facing the enraged Admiral with his usual stoic demeanor.
Where the hell is your captain? Damn bastard corrupted every single hard drive we own!
His face got extremely close to the camera, Midoriya jumping from fear at his proximity.
I killed them, Todoroki responded coolly.
An enraged, "You what?" came from behind him. Koval stood up from her station and charged at Todoroki, held down by Tenya, who leaned down and whispered something to your second mate. It only made her struggle more against him. "I'll kill you for this! You're all cowards for not defending our captain!" All of your other crew members looked back at their stations, accepting the insults and continuing to follow Todoroki's orders. This was going perfectly. The blonde admiral looked around and decided that Todoroki was telling the truth. He let out a small sigh of relief when Bakugo leaned back and seemed to think about his next choice of words.
So, that asshat's dead, huh? That's correct. How did you do it?
Bakugo looked down at Todoroki challengingly. Todoroki shifted once before answering.
They made the mistake of trusting me to pilot a pod. We landed on a meteor. And then, I bashed their head in with the rock. That's fucked up. Even for you, half and half.
Todoroki shrugged and rolled his eyes. Bakugo was one to talk, especially with his record.
Sounds to me like you're a little intimidated by how easily I did it.
Admiral Bakugo scoffed and smirked down at his newest rival.
Me? Intimidated by someone who took literal years to kill one of the galaxy's most wanted criminals? You won't live to tell the tale by the time I'm finished with—
The door rushed open and another blonde appeared in the camera. His expression had fear written all over him.
What is it, dunce face? The Admiral growled.
It's the captain. They're literally on the middle engine. I think they have a bomb. You hadn't expected to be caught and detained so easily. Especially not by the same shark-toothed man who had given you Todoroki. His skin was as hard as a boulder, and as sharp too. There was no doubt you were going to receive fresh cuts and injuries as his hands worked the cuffs around you. The Admiral must have figured you were still alive. Damn it! I was just about to detonate it, you thought. So, you didn't look too happy when you sent your friends off. Any reason for that? You asked. If there was one thing that never failed you, it was your ability to talk yourself out of any situation.
There was no reason.
He pulled you off the ground and began to push you to the open hatch. You were running out of time. Come on. What about the one with the freckles, Midoriya? You can't tell me you two weren't close.
You're making this harder on yourself. Keep moving.
You tried to plant your feet, but the surface was too smooth and he was too strong for you. The hatch was right at your feet now. Listen, you can't— you began. A loud whir and a zap caused the ship to tilt over drastically, sending you and your guard tumbling over. Your crew must have fired the plasma cannons. Now was your chance to leave. You got on your knees and lowered your bound hands so that they were under your feet, scooting yourself against the ground until your arms were back in front of you. Then, you got on your feet and ran for the pod. Another blast like that could set off the bombs, and there was no way you could get back onto your ship if you were dead. You climbed in and started the pod, poking back out to start the explosives timer. You had about a minute to get back. Just as the latch started to close, you were yanked out and thrown onto the rough surface of the battleship. You looked back up to see Admiral Bakugo himself pointing his gun at you. He looked like a rabid animal about to sink his fangs into your neck.
I almost mourned for you. You would have been the first real victory under my belt. I'm glad Todoroki didn't kill you yet.
You began to push yourself back as best you could. He fired 2 shots. Each of them barely missed your head.
Careful, or else your ass would get burnt to a crisp.
Your heart pounded as he stood over you, his gun now in your face.
Rot in hell, bitch.
A shot was fired, but you felt no pain. You looked back up to see the Admiral clutching his hand, or what was left of it. Cheers from your left alerted you of your crew's presence, the fight in you restored. You kicked him right off his feet and laughed triumphantly as he landed on his back, popping up and raising your cuffed arms in victory.
Gah! This isn't over, Captain!
Admiral Bakugo growled, struggling to stand. Oh, I know. I just have one last thing to say to you. Ochako tossed you a rope, and you caught it. He looked up at you in mild confusion and disgust as you tapped him with your foot. Tag! You're it! You jumped off and swung down to your ship, planting your feet on the side. You held onto the rope tightly as you slowly climbed up the top, another loud explosion catching your attention. The bomb went off on the middle engine, obliterating it, and the battleship slowly powered down. Koval and Ochako grabbed you by your shoulders and dragged you to the top once you finished hauling yourself up, helping you out of the cuffs. Well, that was fun! You grabbed Koval's hand and stood, patting her on the back. So, how was it? Did you enjoy the thrill of fighting like this? You asked Ochako, who nodded eagerly. Everyone seemed to enjoy putting that stuck-up prick in his place. You should have seen Tenya when he shot his hand! You laughed and waved at the tall man. He raised his gun and nodded. All right, let's celebrate inside. I need to see how the rest of us did.
Okay, everybody
might as well have.
Calm down.
Everyone was buzzing with excitement, retelling the battle as if it was years old. Midoriya made grand gestures as he told you how Todoroki managed to catch the Admiral off guard. It was awesome! The way he executed those commands and made Kachan stumble on his words was something I wish you were here for. And then... You stood on the podium beside the man of the hour, who watched his best friend ramble on with a content smile. You did a great job. You nudged him with your elbow and gave him a wink. Next thing you know, you can take this ship for a spin while I go out. He looked at his comrades' smiling faces, and then back at you.
Do you think I'd make a good captain?
Your lips met his cheek. He tensed, but didn't turn the affection away. You'd make an epic captain, Shoto.
Okay, mic check. 1, 2, 3. It's the girl Space Freckle and the place to be. We are live here in the closet. My sanity is my main deposit because I'm losing my mind. No, really, can someone press rewind? Because I cannot seem to find my conscience. Hello, how are you doing?
I hope you're feeling good. I hope being here can help you feel a little bit better.
Have you ever been lost at the supermarket and you don't know where your parents are and you're just where are my parents? Or even worse, you're lost, you don't know where your parents are, and like you find somebody that you think is your mom, but they're not your mom. When I was at the store, I would hold on to my mom's hand, and so like when I found somebody, I thought they were my mom, I would just like hold their hand. And so it would be like some random adult, and I'm just holding their hand, and it takes me a second for me to look up and be like, oh, you are not my mom. Luckily, I've never been around any like mean ladies. They've usually been pretty nice about it. Thank you, ladies. You can trust ladies. Ladies, for space president. Make it happen.
This new admiral's gonna give you a run for your money for the... How did you do it?
Honestly, how do I do a lot of things?
How do I eat? Or adult? Or person?
Yeah. I like my coffee like I like my Todorokis. With a little bit of half and half.
Why do y'all stay for these parts? If you're still here, in the comments, comment, croissant. Post a croissant emoji. Are you going to finish that croissant?
Are you going to finish that croissant?
Anyway.
Who took literal years to kill one of the galaxy's...
I lost my breath. Drinking water.
Have you hydrated today?
Wink. We would be peeing all the time if we actually drank water whenever influencers told us to drink water. Also, we would be like so much happier because as everybody knows, water cures depression.
Glug, 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 glug.
Where was I? The door rushed open, and another blonde appeared on the... It's a dumb blonde! Dunce face! Calamari! Of course it would be Kirishima. He's like ultimate Bakugo simp.
Don't tell him I said that.
Come on. What about the one with the freckles?
Me?
Midoriya?
Aww.
Made Kacchan stumble on his words with something I wish he were... Oof, wow. Ah. Ugh.
Please. As if.
So, that asshat's dead, huh? Dead ass.